Journal of Tellen Morwyth, Antiquarian of the Ninth Archive, Entry 7, The Fall and the Flame. 6. 23rd of Emberwain. I cannot mark the hour. Dirgehold ruins, camp, though it no longer feels like one. Disaster, what else could I call it? What other word would do? Torren is gone. We awoke to find his bedroll empty, his pack untouched. His cloak still hung on the post by the fire. The coals were cold. There was no note, no sign of struggle, only absence. At first I thought he had fled, slipped away in the night, perhaps consumed by the slow rot that's been clawing at all of us. But it didn't make sense. He'd shown no interest in the lower levels. He hated them. He spoke openly of the pressure, of the way the stones creaked when no one moved. But still I knew, not guessed, knew. I cannot explain how. It was a certainty I've only felt once before, and God's help me, I remember it too clearly. The morning Bryce fell. He was almost 3, just learning to climb things he ought not. I remember watching from across the room as he reached for something on the counter, the chair rocking beneath his feet. I was too far. I called out, but too late. The chair tipped backwards. He fell as though slowed by the hand of Isander himself. And yet I was slower. The sound of his skull on the floor, it cracked something in me that day. And now God's help me, the memory returned this morning with such clarity it left me breathless. The dread was the same, that helpless knowing, that certainty of tragedy already unfolding. I took the torch closest to hand and descended the stairs 2 and 3 at a time. I do not know how I stayed upright. The spiral blurred around me, the stones sang, and then on the 11th floor I found him. He stood at the edge of the pit, his back to me. He didn't turn, didn't speak. He simply leaned forward, arms at his side, and let himself fall. There was no resistance in him, no panic, no cry. He dropped like a stone dropped into still water, and what I saw fall was not Torren, it was Bryce. The scream that tore from me should have shaken the ruin down. It did not. Nothing answered. Not the stone, not the wind, not the gods. I do not know how long I remained there, on my knees, at the edge, waiting for something, someone to climb back up. The silence around me was complete. It held me like a mother holds a child. And then Lyra arrived. She said nothing, just passed behind me, then stepped up beside me at the ledge. I feared she might follow him, or perhaps I feared I would. She held an unlit torch in one hand, fresh, unburned. I hadn't heard her behind me. I don't know how she navigated the descent in the dark, but she had, and I was grateful. I took it from her with trembling hands and used my sputtering flame to light hers. Then I leaned out, holding my torch, my own dying flame, over the pit, and let it fall. It spun slowly as it went, casting a fluttering golden halo down the shaft. 8 floors, maybe more. Then it reached Torren. It landed beside him. He had fallen headfirst onto a jut of wreckage protruding for the wall. If not for that ledge, who knows how long he would have fallen. His body was bent in on itself, spine twisted, legs folded like wet branches, arms behind him, neck gone. He had not survived the fall. That was mercy. The flame lasted only a moment longer, then it vanished. Not with a hiss, not with the sputter of spent oil. It went out all at once, as though something below had exhaled. Snuffed it like a candle on a shrine. After that I remember nothing. Not the climb, not returning to the camp, not how I came to be in my bedroll with quill in hand. And yet here I am, here where ink still flows and my hands tremble, where grief comes with breath, where I see not the pit but the kitchen floor of my home in Ren-Karen. The wash of blood on stone, my son's eyes wide in stillness. Why now? Why must I carry that weight again? Why would this place show me that? I hear the music now, and it is no longer in the walls. It is inside me. T. Morwyth. Journal of Tellen Morwyth, Antiquarian of the Ninth Archive, Entry 8. The Lightless Cord, 24th of Emberwain. The great hall and below, though I cannot say how far I found her in the hall. Lyra. I do not know when she left camp, whether she walked past me in the night or whether I simply forgot she was ever beside me. But I found her standing where we left the barricade, hands blackened with dust and old lacquer, pushing and prying at the mountain of broken chairs and splintered benches with a kind of cold resolve that frightened me more than any madness would have. She had cleared enough that we could slip through. The door opened with a long breath, like something sighing out the centuries, and the dark beyond welcomed us with arms far too wide. I do not know what I expected. A vault, a shrine, a place set apart. Not more corridors, not more twisting paths that turned back on themselves, doubling and narrowing like veins choking on old blood. There was no dust here, only cold, and stone that absorbed the light. Zareth's forge is down here. I know it. I feel it in the marrow of my grief. But something else is here too, and I can no longer tell if it's the pit I left behind, or the one that has opened inside my chest. There's a hollow behind my breast now, a quiet that should not be. The music never stops. And Bryce cries in its rests. I wept today, without shame, without resistance. The song drew the memory from me, of that day, of his body limp in my arms, the little breath he had left, the way it slipped past his bloodied lips, and the music turned that name into a refrain. I don't remember dropping the torch. I only remember the dark and then the glow. It came from a small side chamber, half collapsed, barely large enough to crouch in. I do not know why I turned, only that something pulled me, gently, as if by the shirt collar, and I obeyed. There, against the far wall, rested the skeleton of a bard, its bones brittle and grey, its ribs like curled parchment beneath a shroud of darkened cloth. What had once been robes were now little more than threads wrapped around hollow form. But what lay atop the corpse? Gods preserve me. It was an instrument. At first, I thought it a lute, but its proportions were wrong, larger, heavier, and yet more refined. Its neck was longer, its body carved into a shape that suggested both elegance and endurance. The sound chamber was rounded but broader at the base, tapering near the neck like a droplet held mid-fall. There were 6 strings, not 12, each stretched impossibly taut across a bridge that had long since fused to the wood. But the strings, they glowed. A faint white blue, like starlight drawn through smoke, and they hummed. Not loudly, not in pitch, but with tension, a readiness, like a blade yet to be drawn. I stared at it for too long, and the despair took hold. I could feel it, something in that chamber feeding on me. Not my body, my sorrow. It tugged on my grief like a spoiled child tugging a toy from my arms. I felt unmade. Not all at once, but in quiet pieces. Each breath took something from me and did not return it. I would have remained there. I think I wanted to. But then I turned and saw Lyra watching me. She stood in the narrow entry, face lit by the glow of the strings. Her left eye, the wounded one, shone with the same spectral light. And in its center, gods, I know that shape. A Sikarad, the mark of the Blood Lords, the Doom's eye. She did not blink, she did not speak. The flesh around her wound had begun to pulse, and beneath the skin I saw glyphs rising like bruises, high Killian runes, crawling in patterns I could not read. Her hand reached forward, slow, not threatening, but beckoning. I ran. I ran like the boy I once was, afraid of thunder, clutching a broken candle in a storm. I ran through corridors I could not name, brushing stone I could not see, chased not by footsteps, but by the weight of everything I had ever failed to protect. I stumbled into the great hall again, slipped through the narrow gap, collapsed against the barricade, the door at my back. I sit here now, pen in hand, pages blood-specked and trembling. She followed. At first I heard only the soft scrape of her nails on the wood, like someone idly testing a harp string. Then the thuds began, not frantic, not angry, just rhythmic, final, inevitable. I do not know if she is still Lyra, but I know what I saw in her eye, and I know that the Daira are here. But so is something else. It is feeding on me. Not with teeth, not with claws, but with want, with a hunger that drinks memory like wine, that savors grief like song. I should stop writing. She's thudding again. T. Morwith.